I had a guy call me a while back who was thinking of moving to North Carolina, but he had already tried moving to South Carolina. I think he was from Colorado. Anyway, he spent a year in South Carolina and decided that he hated it. North Carolina and South Carolina are pretty close to each other and they have a lot in common. I live in NC and I really love it, and I visited South Carolina a few times, particularly the Greenville area, and really enjoyed the vibe there. Everywhere in the South has hurricanes and humidity, so what can be so bad about South Carolina? And this guy that called me, he visited my area and absolutely loved it. So I did a little investigating to find out what the deal is with South Carolina, and as I started researching, I could really see why it had been so difficult to acclimate to. In 2019, South Carolina was ranked as the 8th worst state to raise a family. The ranking was created by WalletHub, and they used 42 different criteria, including salaries, housing affordability, cost of childcare, unemployment, infant mortality rate, violence, crime, poverty, life expectancy, and divorce are some of them. Whether or not you're raising a family, many of these criteria are going to impact how good of a fit South Carolina will be for you. So I'm reading all this stuff and I'm thinking, so many people are moving to South Carolina. I think we need to look at the reasons why people are moving here before I talk about some of the things that people really dislike about the state. It takes less than 5 hours to get from Myrtle Beach on the coast to the mountains of South Carolina. This is Mountain Bridge Wilderness area. How gorgeous is this? There are waterfalls and forests and beautiful overlooks like this one. Whether you're worshiping or admiring nature in all her glory, this little chapel is perfectly situated to experience awe. And it's also a telltale sign of the religious culture of South Carolina, which I'm going to talk about later in the video. Aside from the mountains, there is a rustic beauty to the forested swamplands of the Kangaroo National Park. This 27,000-acre park preserves the largest tract of old-growth bottomland hardwood forest left in the United States, and of course the coastal regions with its beaches and beautiful old trees dripping with Spanish moss. South Carolina is truly a beautiful state. Like many southern states, South Carolina has a unique sound. There are lots of music festivals that happen every year, and many famous musicians hail from South Carolina, especially jazz and southern rock musicians. One of my personal favorites, Darius Rucker, was born in Charleston, and I just want to point out the lyrics in his popular song, Wagon Wheel. Maybe he knew something we don't. Southern food. A lot of the South has similar Southern fare, but South Carolina is part of the Low Country, and you'll see a lot of similarities with what is traditionally thought of as New Orleans cuisine. Things like shrimp and grits, gumbo, Brunswick stew, which has beans and tomatoes and originally was made with small game like squirrel and rabbit. Poor bunny. Now they make it with chicken and pork. They also eat cooter soup, which is turtle, and everything comes with a side of macaroni and cheese. Yes, it's hot and humid, and while humidity is not great for your hair, you feel me, ladies? It's fantastic for your skin. Dry climates make your skin age more quickly, but all that moisture in the air is really protective. I'm actually 75 years old. This is really why everyone retires to the South. Do make sure you wear your sunscreen for protection, but in all seriousness, summer lasts a long time. It starts getting into the 70s in late February, which, given that it's currently spitting ice out of the sky as I'm writing this in Raleigh, North Carolina, makes me want to schedule a trip to Myrtle Beach next week. We'll see what things look like then. And as for winter, like other southern states, you can leave your snow shovel at home. There is no American city that feels quite like Charleston, except maybe Savannah, which is also known for its Federal and Greek Revival architectural styles. Look at these gorgeous homes. All right, so back to the bad stuff. Why is South Carolina ranked so low in so many things? One of the things that South Carolina ranks poorly on is crime. It is number 4 in the country for property crime per capita. I wanted to check out the entire list of states ranked by property crime rates to see if I can think of any connections between the states with the highest rankings, and I saw this. Number 1 is Washington, D.C. They're just robbing us all blind, aren't they? Is that what they mean by property crime? I don't know. Anyway, D.C. is its own animal, but I saw the next 3 states and it brought up a memory I had of something I heard recently. Did you know that crime always goes up in the summertime? Really, people commit fewer crimes when it's cold outside. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Crime usually happens at night and it's really cold in some places at night. Who wants to be outside at 3 a.m. chipping the ice off a car window so you can see if there's anything inside worth stealing? Not me. I mean, if that were my line of business. So we have a bunch of southern states, and maybe Alaska at number 5 kind of throws off my theory. But again, that's an outlier, because what happens to people psychologically when the sun doesn't come out for 6 months at a time? Anyway, look down at the bottom. All the states at the bottom are cold states, and the further up the list you go, the warmer it gets. Maybe all that doesn't mean a thing, but keep in mind that when moving to South Carolina, there are big variations in crime rates from city to city. It's probably a great idea to check the specific city you're moving to when making a decision about where to move. Here's a list of southern cities listed by crime rate per capita. I'll post a link to it in the comments. Some of the other criteria that South Carolina scored low on were the amount of debt people were carrying, credit scores are lower than average in South Carolina, and median family income. A lot of times people throw around these kinds of statistics but don't look at the whole picture. For example, the median family income is lower in South Carolina, but so is the cost of living, which is why so many people are moving there. So let's talk about the things that would most likely impact you should you decide to move. First, let's talk about income. Like I've already said, incomes are lower in South Carolina, so if you're planning to find work here, you need to make sure that the salary you're going to receive in South Carolina will not cancel out the lower cost of living for you. I would imagine this really varies from field to field, but we're going to use a nurse's salary as an example. A registered nurse in South Carolina makes about $65,000 on average. A nurse's salary in California, where many people are moving out of, is $97,000, or about 49% higher. According to Zillow, the median home price in California is $624,000, while the median home price in South Carolina is $206,000. So homes in California are 202% higher than homes in South Carolina, while a nurse's salary is only 49% higher in California. If you're a nurse, you're definitely going to find South Carolina much more affordable. Whatever field you're in, you can find average salaries in many places online, like Indeed or Glassdoor. Those are great places to start your search about your move. It's important to many people that when they move to a new location, they're able to find friends and a community of people with similar ideals and even similar lifestyles. Because of this, I think it's really important to look at health and wellness markers in a community. This data is from the CDC. 26 to 30% of South Carolinians do not engage in physical leisure activity. 45 to 53% of South Carolinians consume less than one fruit a day, and 12 to 18% of South Carolinians consume less than one veggie a day. I want to point out that in the fine print down at the bottom, it says that fried potatoes are considered a veggie, so McDonald's French fries count. I think if you took out fries, the number would probably be closer to the 50% mark, like the fruit number. But think about this. If the people in the community you live in don't value healthy food and you do you think there are going to be restaurants or stores that provide the kind of food that you're used to eating? Are there going to be classes that meet your needs? Will there be running clubs or Zumba classes or Krav Maga classes? There might not be as much variety in these kinds of things if the people living near you don't value them and won't pay for them. Even medical care is going to be different in South Carolina. Where I am in North Carolina, they have a lot of options for medical care. For instance, Duke University has an integrative medicine clinic where they use a combination of traditional medicine alongside proven alternative care methods. But look in South Carolina, they don't even have a regulatory licensing board for naturopathic physicians. I think the important thing to know about South Carolina is there are going to be pockets where you can find healthier lifestyles, better food options, and a culture that values most of the things Americans value. Let's face it, most Americans eat more than one piece of fruit a day, and I'm positive that you can find locations in South Carolina where there are options like this. I think it's just more limited than in other places. To be totally honest, the absolute best thing to look for to judge the lifestyle of an area is a Whole Foods. They do research on lifestyles in the area before they build a store. If there's not the lifestyle to support it, they won't go there. There are only 3 Whole Foods in the state of South Carolina. If you're coming from an area that's more focused around healthy lifestyles, I would probably focus on those areas near the Whole Foods stores in my relocation. If that's important to you, if not, grab your pork rinds down at the gas station and your remote control, and you will be living the life in South Carolina. You can't really talk about South Carolina without talking about golf, Charleston, and Bob Jones. In 1927, Bob Jones Sr. founded a fundamentalist Christian college that in 1947 moved to Greenville, South Carolina. Before I go on, I don't want anyone to think that I'm bashing Christianity. I believe that all cultures have things that are valuable. My area of North Carolina is full of Christians, and I have some very dear friends who are Christians. They are absolutely wonderful people. However, this is one of the most commonly asked questions I get from people moving from other areas. What's it like to live in the Bible Belt, and will I be comfortable and accepted? I recently asked some questions about this on a South Carolina Facebook group. I got over 100 responses, and overall, the general sentiment is people will invite you to church, but for the most part, it's a non-issue. This particular group was in Greenville, and I think Greenville is a little bit more of a melting pot than some other places. I absolutely expect that if you live in some smaller areas in South Carolina, that experiences will be different. Even within the Greenville area, some people said that some areas are more accepting than others. One thing that came up a few times was that it's difficult to find preschool for your children that's not religious. So if that's important to you, just be aware of it. If you like this video, you might also like this one about all the crazy stuff about living in North Carolina. Thanks for watching, and y'all have a great day.